Hey guys, and welcome to this edition of our camper trailer build. Now I should be actually sitting in the corner rocking at this point of time because it has done my head in this week and I've just become obsessed with this thing. I am really enjoying doing it, and like any other of these car type builds, or house builds or whatever, it's breaking the whole project down into small components, problem solving those components while keeping an eye on the total build. This week the major problem has been cabinetry and galley and everything, but we'll get to that in a moment. I've bought windows. I understand now when I look at a lot of builds why they have hardly any windows, because windows are quite expensive. Windows have cost about $1,100 for 3 of them. I've actually bought some quite nice windows though. They're Dometic windows, hinge from the top, quite a nice window. The good thing is that they come with this. So we've got a fly screen that pulls down, and we've got a blind that pulls up all the other way around. I think the blind would pull down. Yep, the blind would pull down. So that gets away with having to have curtains, which I'm not a real fan of. However, it has added to a little bit of the cost, but if I don't have to do curtains or the like, that's fine. So we've put in, on each side, I think I've put a 500 by 450 millimeter window. When cutting out the holes for these, I've found the best way of doing it is to get a hole saw that gives me the radius of the window corners, mark out my square for what hole I need, and then hole saw the corners out, and then I just get my circular saw and run it along between the holes, and with a little bit of sanding it comes out really nice. So window each side, that's really lovely. I've also decided to do a window across the complete front of it, and we've got a 1200 by 300 millimeter window, exactly the same as the other 2 windows I've put in. Has the screen and everything, so it should be quite nice, and will let a reasonable amount of light into the sleeping area of this thing, which is what we're after. With doing the window for the front, again I've gone with using the ply that I've used for the outside, mainly because I've got some here but thinking about it, it adds rigidity because it bolts to each side of the camper, and I'm still using the, what are they, 10G by 50 millimeter screws, stainless screws. I haven't bolted this in yet because I've got to put in one of the roof panels before I do, but that will add rigidity to the complete front. So basically the complete front is a sheet of ply bolted to the sides, and I shouldn't have to reskin that bit with the 4mm ply that a lot of people put over the spars. So I'm pretty happy with that. Cabinetry for the rear, that's been interesting, and it's taken up a lot of my time and all of my waking hours thinking about it. So I've either been working on this thing or thinking about it. So anyway, kitchen bench. We've got a 550mm deep kitchen bench in the back. After a lot of going back and forwards, I ended up just buying a wood panel from my local hardware shop, and the reason I went that way was that the downside is weight, because it probably weighs a little bit more than what it should. However, it's solid wood, and if I put in a sheet of 16mm ply and then bought a sheet of lamb and glued it down, I think it would be not far off each other. So at least that one I can oil. It looks the part, and any scratches I can just sand out and re-oil. So that was my thinking behind that. With regard to the bulkhead between the kitchen and the sleeping area, that starts from the top of the bench top and goes up to where I've routed out the slides for the roofing material. That section I've left the roofing material off because I needed to put the cabinets and all in before I installed that. For the bulkhead and the cabinets, I've lashed out a little bit, and after a hell of a lot of research, I've done so much research on this thing. I told you I was obsessed. I've found a lot of the upmarket caravan manufacturers use this 2-sided PVC It's a lightweight ply. It's marine type ply. It's about 14 mils thick, 15 mils thick, and on each side they have a 1mm PVC finish. And this is a gloss white, and I was really concerned, and I think it comes in a few other colours off the shelf. There are people that will laminate whatever you want to ply, except they wanted me to buy 10 sheets, and this stuff here was $250 a sheet, so I've bought 2. I think I'll get away with it, but anyway, I was really concerned of working with this. Unlike the roof that came quite, it just had a piece of cardboard between the sheets and nothing to protect the gloss white, this has actually got a piece of plastic that's stuck to each side, so you can just work with it like any other plywood, and when you're finished, peel off the plastic and you're left with a perfect panel. Cutting it, I've got a circular saw with small tooth numbers that's suitable for doing laminates and the like, and it just goes through this stuff like butter, and there's no chipping, it's easy to work with, and I just screw into the ends or whatever with the same screws I'm using everywhere, and it's working out really nice. Cabinets were interesting, and it was, what do I want to do with this, and in the end I just decided I just wanted storage. I wanted the doors to hinge up. After thinking about going all fancy and having fittings where you didn't have to have a lock, done a lot of looking at high-end off-road caravans. They all seem to have a stainless piano hinge on the sides of their doors to spread load, and a lock at the bottom, which is what I've done. Why try to reinvent the wheel with that? Making the cabinets without adding a lot of weight went through my mind, and in the end I've got like a shelf that's screwed between each wall, and to that I've put in four uprights, one on each end, 2 in the middle to give me a division. So it's like if you bought IKEA kitchens or something where you've got separate cabinets and you screw them together and you end up with the 2 in the middle. With mine it's one cabinet, but I've just put in 2 uprights in the middle, so when you close the door, you're closing the door on each separate compartment, and that gives us like a his and hers compartment. So we've got a whole sheet at the bottom for the backing. It just backs up onto the bulkhead, and because we're using the same material, when you open the cupboard you just see the gloss white bulkhead, so it's worked out quite well there. With the top, I've just put in 2 strips along the top, yay wide. I haven't tried to cover the whole cabinet because I'm just adding weight. My thought is, if I wanted to finish that off, and I may, is just to use the 3.6mm ply, white face gloss ply that I've used for the roof panel. So if I've got offcuts left, I'll just finish that off, and when you open up the door it looks as though it's one panel. It's panelled throughout the cupboard. So that worked out quite simple. With the doors, I originally went through, I'll just go to IKEA and I'll make the cabinet to suit their doors. Thinking about that more, their doors are just chipboard that are covered. I basically cut out one cabinet that went across the whole width of the camper, sliced it down the middle, that gave us 2 doors, and then sliced off the ends, because when you open these doors, you've got that thickness coming out from the wall of the window, because the doors have to open past the window. So I've cut off a 60mm piece at the end of each door and used those as filler pieces at the end. And with the cuts, that's given me my gaps. So it was actually quite simple to make, just nutting out not having made cabinets or not having gone through the process of how do you make a cabinet for a long time. But I'm really happy with it. With the catches, I bought a whole box of caravan catches off eBay. They're probably of dubious quality, but they seem to be okay and as good as any that I've seen hunting around through different caravans. So they lock, and then you unlock them and open the door. these were interesting because after all of the drama of making the doors, I had to drill a 20mm hole for these through. So thinking about that, I ended up using my stepper drill, which worked out really well because that had a 20mm step on it. And whilst I've only used those on sheet metal before, it actually went through the ply really lovely. So I cut both of those out. I then fitted the collar before I fitted this section, and then by putting that inside the collar before screwing the back on, I could get it perfectly centered. So they've worked out quite well. And then there's just a 90-degree fitting you just screw onto the base of the cabinet, and then to stop the cabinets rattling, I've just used the little half circle stick-on clear strips that you use on cabinets that I got from the local hardware shop. So underneath that, I'm looking at doing a shelf, and in my mind at the moment, I'm thinking of going back. The problems with this is, what can I store? And there's, because these things are so small and compact, packaging with everything is an issue. When we went overseas, I bought a new backpack from a hiking shop and bought some zip-up compartments that went inside it to put my clothes and the like in, and it was absolutely awesome because at the end of the day, you'd open up the backpack, you'd have a couple of compartments that you could just lift out, and you could have one for toiletries, one for t-shirts, one for pants, one for socks and undies. So I'm thinking if I can get some of that type of thing that will fit across the camper, I can make that shelf to suit these that drop into the top of it. Kitchen. The galley is a bit of a concern at the moment. I'm still thinking it all through. Packaging is interesting on this, like where do I package a battery? Because it's all fairly tight. I'm actually thinking at the moment of using my Dometic battery and trying to get away with 240 volt charging that, 12 volt from the car charging that, and a solar panel charging that. And I think that I may get away with that because that's only 7 kilos. Weight is a concern, it adds up really quick on these things. At the moment we're just shy of 470 kilos. That's with all the windows sitting in it, the fridge sitting on the front that's unfilled. So I'm hoping, apart from some cabinetry in the galley, will stay under 500, and then it's just the cladding and everything else. So fingers crossed we're under the 600 mark with this, which would be perfect. So that's where we are this week, guys. I'm chuffed with this thing so far. It's turning out really lovely. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.